I guess I'll start with a question. Did they have the lottery, or did they forget to do that? And just, somebody, I think it was an oversight at the league office. They just printed out the order. For those of you who watched it, obviously went exactly according to form, which, given our research, I don't think has ever happened, at least in the modern era. We study this, not just more out of curiosity than anything else. And, we have our checklist and the odds and all that, just going down the line, starting at 14 up to 1. Obviously there was no movement. So with us, it's I'd say it's a better than average result. It's not a great result. Obviously, we were hoping to move up into the top 2. But in terms of, I think the most likely slot for us, or I know the most likely slot for us, given the percentages, was 5th. There's 35.1% chance we picked 5th, so to end up at 4th, we view that as a win. And then to keep, Washington's pick in the 13th slot, we're the only team, with how the ball's bounced that ended up with 2 lottery picks. So we're happy about that. And I guess with that, I'll take any questions you guys have.
Ryan, what's next now for you as far as the pre-draft workout process?
Yeah, so that process is getting started shortly. We'll have more information to you guys soon. We're kind of going to do it. I think how we've done in the past, at the beginning of each week, we'll send out kind of a list of days we're expected to have workouts. Just to give you guys a heads up, we're going to have a workout tomorrow. So that process has started. Now, in terms of our picks, and obviously we know where we're picking now at 4 and 13 in the lottery. We also have the 28th pick late in the first round and the 34th pick in the early second round. So we've scheduled a lot of workouts already. A lot of players who will end up in the lottery or think they'll end up in the lottery wanted to wait until after the ping pong balls are drawn. Their agents wanted to wait to see where teams ended up. And that scheduling process will get started, right away, either tonight or tomorrow. We would prefer to do that sooner, but understandably the agents and players wanted to wait to see, just any kind of movement in the lottery. But we'll have workouts pretty consistently starting tomorrow, for at least the next 3 or 4 weeks. Draft's on June 23rd, so we usually wrap up a few days before that. But that'll be kind of how we've done in the past. Most of the workouts, pretty much all the workouts will be here at the arena, and we're able to go 3-on-3, play some 2-on-2, 3-on-3, and we can have 6 on the floor at a time for the pre-draft workouts.
How do you assess the depth of this draft and how that would be at one of those slots?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think those top 2 guys get all the attention, and I'm not here to take anything away from them. I think they're 2 really talented young players. If the draft does go according to form, as it's projected. I will say in the past there have been plenty of drafts where it looked like there were 2 elite players or 2 players who separated themselves from the pack. And I'm not going to name names, but in the last decade I can remember at least 2 drafts like that. And in retrospect, neither one of them, that turned out to be the case with those 2 guys were the 2 elite players, and they were head and shoulders above the rest of the draft. So that's why we're happy at 4. We're comfortable at 4. Obviously, we would prefer to move up. The higher, the better. These kind of things. You guys know how that goes. But we think, assuming those guys are off the board with the top 2 picks, that at 4th we'll have a lot of options, and I think the pick will have a lot of value to us. I think it'll also have a lot of value around the league in terms of trade calls and things like that. So obviously we'll answer the phone and see what comes our way.
So after the 10 teams, Ryan, the 1 to 4 left, are you thinking, hey, we're going to shoot?
Yeah, we did, Jack. We're going, down the list or up the list or however you want to put it. And it was weird. You're waiting for movement. I think there's some anticipation in the room, just waiting to see an envelope, other than the one on the list. And when they kept just going according to form, and we get up to 4, that was intriguing to us. Because I have the odds here in front of me. Our range was obviously 1 to 7. The second least likely pick was the 4th pick. There's a 9.9% chance we get the 4th pick. Least likely pick was 7th, and then so in 4 we're optimistic. But at the same time, again, we could have been 7. We could have moved 5 with our most likely slot. So it's we're not doing cartwheels about it, but at the same time we're glad we didn't move down. But certainly not to 6 or 7.
The 2 in the lottery, much from that team wins the losses wise next year. I think 2 guys in here.
Yeah, I think the good part about that is it gives us flexibility to do different things. We could address a couple different positions, obviously. with the only team, as the only team with 2 lottery picks. I guess in theory, and we have to talk more about this, but you could maybe take, one younger guy, maybe with some more upside, more potential, and then one more established guy, just to get players in different ranges and different stages in their development. But certainly we have a number of needs to address. We do like the young talent on our roster, but we need upgrades, in a few different spots. So I think for me that's the benefit of it. It's not like we need to draft a power forward or a small forward or a center or what have you. We're not really tied into a position. And then honestly, depending on what we do with the first pick, that may affect our second pick as well, and what we do positionally. Historically we haven't drafted 2 guys in the same position. I think that can be a little tricky to develop, 2 rookies who play the same slot. So we could let us get a front court guy and a back court guy, or a front court guy and a wing, or what have you.
Ryan, you said taking calls. You said you would be taking calls about the fourth pick, but would you also be making calls about that pick as well?
I think it's too early to say. We're happy with where we ended up. I think our initial projections, there are going to be a lot of really good players in that range. So I wouldn't rule out us making calls, but I think if we were to do something with a pick, which I think is unlikely, it would be closer to the draft, because we want to get through the draft workout process. We want to meet with all the players. We want to get all of the medical information. So we want to talk to most of the teams around the league. Again, I think most of those calls would be coming to us, but we want to see kind of the value they place in the pick, and then go through the process, and then closer to June 23rd, if there's any reaction, I think you'd see that then. But as we sit here today, I think the most likely scenario is obviously for us to pick 4 and 13 in the draft.
What, you mentioned 4, but now having 4 in the top 34, how likely is it to have all 4 of those guys come to training camp?
Unlikely, I think, especially with those latter 2 picks at 28 and at 34. I think one of the blueprints for us, obviously this depends on who's there, but I think the situation we've had with Bogdanovich for the last 2 years, congratulations to him, by the way. He had another tremendous season in Istanbul playing for Fenerbahce. Also, they lost a heartbreaker in the EuroLeague finals the other day in overtime to a great CSKA Moscow team. But Bogdan had another good year, and you guys remember that draft 2 years ago in 2014. Very similar situation. We had 3 first-round picks, and the third one we used to draft and stash Bogdan, and it's gone, I think, really well for both sides. He's continued to grow and develop as a player, and stacked up accolades in Europe, including winning the Rising Star award for the best young player in Europe twice. And for us, it's allowed us to watch him and scout him and continue to stay in touch with Bogdan. But also not get the clock started on his career, not put him on an NBA court before he's ready. So we'll certainly look at something similar. And one thing we wouldn't be opposed to, Craig, is if there is a player in that situation that's in somewhere, say in the late teens or early 20s, we need to package both of those picks to move up and get one guy. If we feel there's one guy ahead of that 28th pick range that is special and we feel strongly about, then we'll do that as well. So I think we have as many options as any team in the draft, and we have as much flexibility as any team in the draft, especially at the high end when you're talking about 4 of the top 34 picks.
Ron, how tricky is it for you as a general manager to weigh whether or not you're going to use the 4th pick and the 13th pick and then the 28th pick down, make a trade, and it's like 8 days before you can talk to any free agents or anything else when the draft hits? So how tricky is it for you to try and balance what you want to do to turn over this roster and make it different for next year?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think going into the draft, you have to have obviously your main plan in place, and then different contingencies maybe based on who's available in the draft. I think obviously it'd be easier to predict the player or players we think will be there at 4. The further you get down to 13, and then certainly 28, 34, there are more variations, more different ways it could go. But going into it, let me answer it this way. I guess the good news is the rookie scale slots for the salaries are relatively low, so that doesn't really affect your cap space too much. If we draft guys at say 4, 13, and 28, that's not going to make a significant dent in our salary cap space. So they're in some ways they're related. Obviously, positionally, you want them to be related because we need to figure out how to address a few positions. One in particular at the power forward spot. After trading Morris to Washington, and then We have John Lure and Mirza Teletovic as unrestricted free agents. That's one, for example, that we'll probably need to address in multiple ways, either through the draft, trades, and/or free agencies. We'll need multiple guys at that spot, which obviously includes potentially re-signing Lure and Teletovic. So, answer your question, it's a dilemma. Not knowing what's going to happen in free agency, but our philosophy, my philosophy, has always been just take the best players in the draft and then figure the rest of it out down the road.
Ryan, obviously you have new players first, but would you say there's any advantage to drafting international players, leaving them overseas for a while rather than taking them and putting them on your D-League team, or vice versa?
Yeah, I think there are a few advantages to it. The main one is you don't get the clock started on his NBA career. A second one that's probably equally important, maybe more important, is that you don't throw him in an NBA game before he's ready, especially if he's not playing, one of the higher levels in Europe. You see it, a lot in baseball. They're worried about trotting a pitcher out there and having him get kind of hit around before he's ready for, Major League Baseball action. So, there are some benefits to it. There are some advantages to it. With Bogdan's situation, he played at a relatively high level with Partizan, his former team in Serbia. Played in the Adriatic League, and but then went up kind of a whole other weight class to Fenerbahce, who's one of the elite teams in Europe. That jump in competition helped him as a player, helped his development. So I think those are the main benefits. And also having us get to know a guy better. We've spent a lot of time with Bogdan over the past couple of years. So again, it's not something that we're definitely going to do, but it's certainly an option for us and something we're thinking about. Because I do think it is a pretty strong draft internationally, especially when you're talking about the back half of the first round or the early second round. All right, is that it? Thanks, guys.